Hey, Talia here, and today on I Got Back Up, I'm joined by Dr. Tara. Dr. Tara is a sex and relationship expert, podcast host, professor at Cal State Fullerton, and dating agent and co host on the new Celebs Go Dating show. We explore her experience in the dating world, her reasons behind her first marriage before 30, life after divorce, navigating the dating world after heartbreak, rejection, and self doubt, and tools to live a more confident, self loving, and empowered life. When you hear the phrase "I got back up," what do you think and feel?
Thinking I think of like plan plan B and like social support. Um so for me as, someone that has always like planned her life for so much in advance and then had everything kind of crumbled and had to like replan everything, um I just know like life sometimes the way it goes is not always the way that you wanted it to be at first. However, it's always the right way at the end. So, is that is that a little confusing?
Not at all. I actually
Yeah.
that's not confusing at all. I was just thinking to myself, "What a way to start this."
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I because the reason why I said this was because like I've always been like a huge planner. I've always had like 5 years I'm gonna do this, 10 years I'm gonna do all of these things, and it's one of the reasons why I got married when I was younger in my first marriage, and it's also the reason why I got a divorce and had to like start over and realizing like all the plans that I had, my original plan, nothing worked out, and it's fine and it's okay. I've got back up.
and that's exactly what it is, and it's something that I know I've learned as well, is that you can have a plan, whether that's sometimes a day plan, a month, week, year plan, rest of your life plan, and to be honest with you, there's no point planning everything to the fine detail. There's
You're
just no
right.
point. There is no point because life will happen how it's meant to happen for you.
Yeah, yeah. Do you believe in the universe?
I do, yes.
Yeah, me too. And I used to not. I used to take life very objectively. I live life very objectively based on plans. Everything is like step by step. Everything is very like science based or, just social scientific way of living. And then I started having everything goes not according to plan. Then I started studying more of like Eastern philosophies and also just studying the sense of like what is the universe and what is God for different people, different religion, different faith. And it's really really interesting how that comes into play into my life now, even as a sex expert. I know it's kind of controversial and weird to say two things in the same sentence, being religious and being a sex expert, but that's who I am.
And that you're not going to change, for anyone or anything, because that's who you are and that's who you've become. And we are going to obviously get into your story, but exactly what you and I were just saying, and I think it's really important to note this right at the beginning, is that look, and I know everyone thinks very differently, but I think you understand what I'm about to say, is that life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. And once you can flip that narrative and know that things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you, you can look, it's really difficult when you're in the bad place. I'm not
Yeah.
say that, I'm not sugarcoating that. You won't think that at all when you're in that dark spot. But once you maybe start to see out of it, you start to realize things are happening for you. And then on that, I want to then hand the mic over to you. And I want you to basically start anywhere where you think most resonates with your journey, with your story, and the person you've become today.
Wow. Such a big task. Start anywhere. Wow, this is such a great question. I feel like I'm gonna start asking this question now when I go on like dinner parties. Like, tell me a story about you. Start anywhere where you find it important or pivotal. Okay, let's see. I would say I want to start from the beginning because to understand where I'm coming from is to help people understand like how I got here. So I'm originally from Bangkok, Thailand. I grew up in a very religious family, Buddhists. I went to an all girls Catholic school where we had to wear uniforms covering our wrists and our knees. And, you have to kneel down to approach your teachers and to talk to them. So I grew up in such a restrictive, very highly disciplined environment. And that was reality up until I finished middle school. So it's like over 10 years. And it's a long time of conditioning of what it means to be a girl, a woman, right? To cover yourself, to never show, you can't even show your knees. You get hit on the wrists if you like show your knees. And if you know, don't follow all the strict rules that they have at school, like you can only wear the uniform according to like how they want you to wear it. You have to only like um put your hair up in a way that they require. You have to use the color of the bow in your hair according to what is approved. Imagine being a child and like that's the environment you grew up in. um how do you think their worldview is? Restrictive, right? Like, I wasn't, one of those kids that get to like run around being like in dirt, wearing rainbow skirts and dyeing their hair, right? Like I grew up in a very restrictive environment. I grew up with a very loving family, very loving parents, but at the same time, they have their limitation. And I think that's what most of my students can relate with me, like as a professor. Like, I love my job as a university professor. And I think every time I tell them, where I come from and my story, they can relate to like their parents being loving, but at the same time, like they can only do their best. They don't know their limitations. Like they don't know that they're teaching beliefs that are based on patriarchy and sexism, and that men are better than women, and they didn't know, right? But I grew up with a lot of love from my parents, a lot of attention. So the pivotal moment for me after finishing middle school was going to high school in Finland and completely like 160, seeing different things in a different school. All these people, they get naked and go into the saunas together, and they don't care about nudity. They don't care about covering up. You can wear whatever you want, you can say whatever you want. And there's just so much freedom and individual expression, and I never had that basically growing up. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North London, and
North London.
it's interesting actually because I've had this conversation with quite a few people recently, and I think that and I believe me, I'm not going to turn everyone in Britain against me, but I think that the British or English culture are a lot more reserved than pretty much anywhere else I've been. So in a way, and I've spoken to a few people recently that have over the summer gone on holidays and they've gone traveling,
Mhm.
and they've gone to these places where they feel that they can be their authentic self and no one cares. And then they've come back to London and they're like, well, when I've come back, I've been this person with this job, with this, this age, with this religion.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you're already putting yourself into this person that, okay, you might be on paper, but you can still be that person that you've discovered when you were away. You can still be that person here. So exactly what you're saying is actually something I've been talking to quite a few people about very recently.
You can always bring it back and
Yeah,
implement like little pieces of it with you,
yeah.
however it works in your current situation. But yeah, that really opened my eyes. Like seeing a bunch of people getting naked, not caring about nudity, and just being themselves and having fun and enjoying like the moment.
Mm.
That was a huge pivotal moment for me. I remember during that time too, I started dating. So before that time, I only dated girls because I went to an all girls school. So when I was young, I thought I was a lesbian because like that's what everyone did, was dating other girls because there's the only thing available in school. And of course, when you're in middle school, you start having hormones, and you go along with like what's going on, right? Like as a young teenager. but in high school, that was when I started seeing like boys and exploring my sexuality in that way. And I just remember, how kind of free or freeing it was to like not be home and not go to that school and wearing all the uniform and only have that path in life versus like, all these things that are around me, and I get to explore in a safe way, in my own way. I've always been, even though I've had lots of dating and lots of sex with people, I've always been like safe. I always knew how to take care of myself. So that was like the moment where it opened my eye to like, okay, there's so much of the world out there, and what I knew is literally like 1%, if not less. Then I got to move to America, and you know, because I've lived in the US for so long now, I do identify as an American, and I feel like my culture and how I behave and a lot of my beliefs are American. When I moved to the US, I moved to Los Angeles, and I absolutely loved it. There's so much freedom, so much culture, people wearing what the fuck ever they want, saying whatever they want, dating whoever they want, having sex with whoever they want. Like, there's just so much more freedom and appreciation of expressions that I have never seen before. Because even in Finland, 90% of the people were white, and were, in a way, it's a homogeneous culture, right? Like they do similar things, they have similar religion, yeah. But when I moved to LA, it's like everyone was there. And it's so diverse and so interesting. All kinds of food you can get, all kinds of people you can meet. And that really changed, I think, everything for me. I'm really grateful that I made that jump and moved to the United States, and especially in Los Angeles, because it's not like that everywhere, right? If I moved to Utah, it would have been a different story. Probably wouldn't be having sex. Probably would be having like soaking or anal sex, because those don't count for them. But yeah, that was also my, I would say, second pivotal moment of my life, is moving to Los Angeles. And then, I went to graduate school in Los Angeles, had an amazing mentor who really believed in me, told me I should apply to be a TA. I applied to be a TA. I was pretty much thinking like, oh, I'm not going to get it. I'm an international student. English is not my first language. Like, I'm not going to get it. But I was given the opportunity. I got the position, and that started my journey of being an educator. I absolutely fell in love with teaching. It's really my passion, and it has been cemented in my PhD program, where I also got to teach throughout the 4 years. After I finished my PhD, um, I pursue a full-time professor position. Got my dream job as a professor at Cal State Fullerton, and I've now been at Cal State University for 8 years as a professor. I would say throughout this journey, there's two things that were huge that happened to me. One thing is me knowing that whatever I want to achieve, I can do it, because I keep building my academic confidence and my professional confidence through just finishing every task that was thrown at me, everything that was, a check mark. Like, I checked them, I checked all of them. So all of those, all of my confidence in academia, in professional setting, was huge, was through the roof. I was very confident in that arena. However, in my personal life, my confidence couldn't be any lower. When I finished my PhD, my very first goal was to get married, because I was like, oh no, I'm approaching 30, like I'm in my late 20s. Um, Everything's going well for me except love department. And how can I be a fake person going to school teaching sexual satisfaction, relationship satisfaction, healthy relationships in university when I don't even have one?
Mhm.
So, being, a perfectionist that I am, and following quote unquote plans and goals, I then set out to, just find someone great to get married to. And you want to guess what happened next?
I mean, you can tell us.
um, Found someone on Tinder. He was perfect on paper, checked every box, got married in 6 months. Guess what happened next?
I mean, I think I know.
Yeah. Very soon after I realized I made a mistake, um, it was very, very hard to accept and leave that relationship and get a divorce because I did not want to be a failure in that arena. Coming from someone who just loves achieving like different goals in life, I'm just addicted to being perfect and or seeming perfect, not being because I was not, and I still am not. And I understand now that it's not the goal in life. But at that time, I think I was really just misguided. I thought that coming off as having a perfect life was important. I thought getting married was important before I turned 30, was important. And then having, a beachfront house was important. All kinds of things that I thought was important, now I know, are not necessarily true. So the hardest thing that I've done in life, and this is really a much shorter version because there's a lot of like adversities that happen during the marriage and the divorce. But all in all, I think the hardest thing that I've ever done was going through that divorce and accepting quote unquote failure of the marriage on my part, and also um disappointing my mother because she was very disappointed when I got a divorce. And, now we're all fine and great, but it did take her a long time to understand why I had to do it because where she was coming from and her culture and her belief, you stick it out. You be a good wife. You stay in your marriage. Like divorce is embarrassing, right? So that was hard. So it was like I had to get divorced personally and also like with my family.
I think there's a couple of things obviously to mention from that, but I think it's so interesting because you said, before 30, to have the perfect life is to get married before 30. And I think that, you know, society in some wild way makes because I think it's very different for men. Like men don't have this pressure.
No, they
And
don't.
I do know there's obviously the biological clock with women. So I understand that's in inverted commas slight pressure, but there is this kind of thing which I know a lot of women in society believe that if they're single at 30 years old, that's a failure. Like, if you're
Mhm.
still single at 30, what's wrong with you as a woman? And I think that's nuts.
Mhm.
Like,
It is.
I personally think that's because I'm somebody that's fallen into that as well. I've navigated through it, but I'm somebody that used to kind of be a bit like, oh, I'm hitting my mid 20s and and I just think it's unfair because and we might end up rushing into something, finding the wrong people, and then it doesn't work out.
Mm-mm.
And then, I mean, obviously, you said, how long into the marriage then was it until you realized that this wasn't it?
Um, you know, I was quiet quitting a long time before I actually asked for the divorce. So I think the very first time I realized that this is not for me was actually after like a year in to the marriage. But I stayed a couple more because, like who knows, maybe we can try to work it out. Maybe we try different relationship types or how it functions. Maybe we don't have to be monogamous. Maybe we try these, maybe we try that, maybe we try traveling, maybe we try, you know, I don't know, vacations, more gifts. Maybe something will help save it and build this connection and build the chemistry, but we just never really had it.
And that's the
I
thing is,
think we both were beneficial for one another during the time.
but that's the thing as well, isn't it? It's the constant of keep trying. You did
Yeah.
keep trying. You didn't want to because it's I don't think divorce is a failure, not at all, because everyone changes in life and things happen.
Right.
People grow apart. Um, but you do keep trying, and then yeah, it gets to the point where I know a lot of people they don't want to get divorced, and it's amazing how many people stick out not just for a few years, but like for a really
Forever.
long, yeah,
Yeah.
forever. and then they lose themselves as a person.
Mhm.
They lose who they really are inside
Mhm.
because look, I obviously haven't, I haven't been divorced, and so it's I can't understand it in that concept, but I also can understand, like, leaving a relationship when I've been in
Mhm.
relationships and I didn't, want it to end, and we didn't want, I didn't want to leave it. But at
Mhm.
what point are you sacrificing who you are as a person compared to wanting to be with this person and really try and make it work?
Mhm. A lot of people will say to me, like especially people that I coach, they will go, "I just don't want to be single."
Yeah.
As in like their mediocre relationship is better than being single. Um, and it's a really interesting point of view because when I was when I was married and I did not want to get a divorce, it wasn't that I did not want to be single at all. Like it wasn't about that at all. It was more about I don't want to be embarrassed. And it was very misguided. I hadn't worked on myself personally. I was just focusing on achieving professionally and didn't really look inward. Didn't back then. I didn't start my, self care and self help journey um, with all the practices that I love now, like meditation, journaling, and therapy, coaching. I have a, and this is gonna sound woo woo and a little bit LA, but I have like an inner child coach and a shaman, and, and absolutely love both of them. Really helpful to me. I talk to my inner child coach regularly. I talk to my shaman once a year. And for me, divorce is a huge opportunity to live your best life. Like, divorce is not a failure, divorce is an opportunity. And if you see it that way, you won't see it that way when you go through it. But afterwards, the sooner you can see it that way, the better, because then you'll save yourself from just months of self inflicted pain and misery that I had for a long time. I was good at hiding it though. I was always good at hiding um, like painful emotions and unpleasantness and always showing up like positively and happy, but that's one of my problems that I had worked on for a long time. And I would say I'm still working on it right now. Is one of the things that I work on continuously is toxic positivity. Is, yeah. Because we live in a world where it's so like, oh my God, positive, positive, everything, like just be positive, all the things. Sometimes you just have to give someone a break and allow them to explore negative emotions.
Mhm.
If you're upset, if you're angry, if you're jealous, if you're, all these things, like you're not a bad person. You're not a bad person for not being a positive robot. And I that's something I had to relearn is exploring my negative emotions. And it's been great. I love being angry. Now I do. In the past, I never allow myself to be.
That this is a really, really, really fascinating point because it's the case of understanding darkness and light. You that it's yin and yang. That this is what life is. You can't have light without darkness. You can't have darkness without light. And it's learning how to, because I've been through it as well. It's learning, okay, getting to the point where you're almost too positive, and you're
Yeah.
actually, anytime you feel something negative, you're pushing that away. You're like, no, 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 I'm not meant to feel anything negative anymore. I'm only meant to be positive. But then you kind of come back to a point where you kind of go through those motions, and then you sit with the negative things, and you actually realize that when you feel a negative emotion, yeah, you can enjoy feeling a negative emotion. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're angry or you're sad or you're hurt by someone. If you are, that's okay. Like, that's
Yeah.
okay. And feel it, sit with the emotion, let it. I think I saw something even maybe earlier today, actually. And it was like, if you feel like something's bothering you or you're having that a negative emotion, have a glass of tea with it. Oh, sorry, have a cup of tea with it. How many times I said glass of tea? I'm
A
English.
gla Oh, you're not a true British.
I'm not a tea drinker anyway, so that's why I said that. I don't
Really? Isn't
drink
that
tea.
blasphemy?
Yeah, I don't drink tea. That's why I can get away with that. Anyway, it actually said, like, have a cup of tea with your negative emotions, sit with it.
Yeah.
Like, be
Yeah.
okay and just sit with it. And I think that's a really interesting point that you just said as well. It's okay, if you're feeling that way, it's okay.
It's sometimes even enjoyable, honestly.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a kick out of it.
Yeah, and it's so much more short-lived
Mm,
if you just experience it. Like, if you're just angry, like, "Oh, I'm so fucking angry," like, and you just be angry for a little bit, and it's so much more short-lived than like, "Oh, I'm okay, this is okay, this
yeah,
is fine."
yeah.
And then, you just, like, fester and you have it inside you and you're just consistently disappointed and, like, no, I think it's better to express how you feel, like, immediately.
Yeah, yeah, I know
Um,
100%.
of course, like there's always, effective conflict resolution. If you're in a relationship where there's a lot of conflict and two people don't tend to manage conflict similarly, then it could be hard, right? Then you shouldn't be shouting and yelling because that's not helping. Um, at the same time, I think there's two different things when it comes to exploring and experiencing and expressing your emotion. Like, first thing is it something that can be resolved by sharing your true self and your true feelings? If it's something that can be effectively resolved, like, sure, express your emotions and feelings. But if it's something that's just going to add to the fuel, make the other person more upset, and nothing is going to be resolved in this moment, it's probably better to like separate and like walk away and then manage your emotions and then come back and have a conversation. I think that's like two different things.
Yeah, well, that's why you hear a lot of people say, when whether it's a text message or an argument or something comes through that angers you or makes you feel one of those negative emotions, that's why you hear a lot of people say, "Don't respond right away.
Right.
Walk
Yeah.
put your phone down, walk away. If you need to have 5 minutes from that person that you're in front of,
Yeah.
just say, 'Give me 5 minutes,' because what happens is we react. We
Yeah.
react and we'd end up saying a lot of the time we say things we end up regretting because our emotions come
Exactly.
out first.
Yeah.
Once you process the anger and you sit down with it and you kind of let it happen, you can still say things in anger, but you end up saying probably a lot less,
Hmm.
especially stuff you're going to regret once you've just taken a break.
I see that a lot when I coach couples that come in and have a conflicting view of what a good sex life is,
Mhm.
or in a sexless long term relationship. That's a huge issue. I was going to say it's a huge issue in the modern day, but I think it has always been a huge issue. It's just that people didn't talk about it back in the days. Like, I'm sure historically there were millions of couples that did not have sex for like 2, 3 years.
Mhm.
Right, like, but now because people are talking more about sex and people are realizing like, "Oh, so is it normal or not normal to feel this way?" Like, they want help and they come seek help. So whenever I have clients coming in and they have conflicting views on sex, the very first thing I tell them is like, "Don't say something right now." Like, don't. Because someone's gonna say, "Well, she's always doing the da da da," da," and like blame the other person, or like, "Well, but then he also da da da," da," but like, mm, let's do some assessment first, and some objective assessment can help this situation, right? So I always start with like having them do questionnaires on like how they their values on sex, their sexual preferences, what they like and dislike, what their views on like the uh, ideal like sexual frequencies and things like that. And then I combine the test, and what's really interesting, a lot of times people have the same sex goals. They just go about it differently and they're not good at talking about it, and it causes fights. And that's the issue, is sexual communication, not different sex goals.
And then, so from that actually, because I also want to, first of all, I want to hear a little bit more about then obviously what happened once you kind of went through the divorce and how you, mentally and just in your general life kind of, you know, went through life afterwards. But then also, I want to discuss from the point you just made, how do you think, because I think a lot of the time with regards to things like sex, if you can't communicate what you do or don't want, it might also come from who you are as a person and your own self-love and your own self-confidence and being able to say, I want XYZ or do XYZ. And I think that comes a lot from yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much so. And it is related to my personal story as well. I think in my 20s, I did not have the level of self esteem and confidence to understand you know, my worth and to have the confidence to pursue what I truly want in my personal relationship. I think that's why I fell into the trap of let's just do this. Like let's do what is culturally expected, what is seen as quote unquote success. Let's live this life and then realize, soon enough that it wasn't something that I wanted. So after um I got a divorce, I went into this very much personal development journey. I tried all kinds of different practices that are considered personal development and self-care and like self-love practices, everything from journaling, meditation, breath work, talking to different types of professionals, try moving my body through like somatic practices, also trying to speak my truth more often. And the more I do it, the better I get. So when my current husband and I started dating, I try to say everything that I feel rather than like keeping it in, because in the past I've always kept it in order to keep peace, in order for the other person to like me, in order to not come off as needy or demanding, because I had low self-esteem and I want people to like me, people pleasing behaviors basically. I had to get rid of all that and start just speaking to reality, like what I want. um and soon enough it becomes very second nature to me. It becomes easier and easier each time, and now I think I'm kind of known for speaking for what I want. Like everyone in my life knows that's what I do. I tell my friends exactly what I want or what I need. Like if it's my birthday party, here's what I want. um here, I'm known, like my husband knows, like I will just say how I feel in the moment, and that's something that everybody in my life finds refreshing. Is I'll just say it. um it's not as easy at the beginning, of course, but the more you do it, the more you realize that people don't hate you for telling them exactly how you feel in the moment. If you don't like something, tell them. If you don't want to be here, tell them. It actually strengthened the bond of the friendships and the romantic relationship in your life. So yeah, so after that, then I, started, I met my husband, now husband, started dating. We, I would say, have like a really passionate relationship because we both care so much about our own individual passions. I care so much about sex positivity and moving the sexual empowerment overall, like moving the cause forward. Um, Very much devote every single day of my life working on sex positive movement and sexual empowerment and speaking in different places and teaching students and coaching my clients and writing my articles and all the things, or actually talking about sex on Celebs Go Dating. So devote every day to my passion, and my husband does the same. He's an oil painter and he devotes like every day to his art. And I think when two passionate people who work on themselves continuously, regularly meet, it's so much easier. Yeah, so our relationship is very much based on passion, and that's like our main value, and that includes sexual passion and staying sexually connected.
And I think from what you just said, you have what you're passionate about, he has what he's passionate about. And I mean, they are different things. And it's navigating the way through life as having your own, being your own person and having your own life
It's
when
so
you
important.
when you do enter relationships. And I think, if you can always hold on to that, and you can always know if, God forbid it didn't go the way you thought and you didn't have forever together, if you do lose that person, you are still a whole human being and you don't lose
Mhm.
everything when you lose that person, because that's also, I think, maybe I reckon everyone probably goes through, maybe not everyone, but most people go through that at least once in their life, when they might devote everything to a relationship. And when
Yeah.
that relationship crumbles, or whatever age you are, you lose every inch of yourself.
Yeah, I always say that's a red flag. Like if you spend all your time pleasing your partner and hanging out with your partner and you have no friends and you don't have hobbies and all your time and effort is devoted to the relationship, like that's a red flag,
Mm,
probably for yourself. Like, if you're listening and that's what you're doing, take this as like a sign that, you do need your life too. You need your own friends, you need your own hobbies and passions and the thing that you're are meaningful, the things that are meaningful to you. Of course your partner is always going to be meaningful to you, but what else
mhm,
is meaningful to you? And that's really the key. I think when people in the past did not have the opportunity to pursue, for women, right? Women in the past did not have the opportunity to pursue their passions outside the household because they had to be, a housewife or stay at home wife. That's the same thing, right? Housewife.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, stay at home mom. Their passions are their children and their husband, and I think that's great and that's fine. But at the same time, like, don't forget yourself too. Like, is there something you love to do, like reading, right? Like joining a book club, having friends outside of your marriage. Like, I think all those things are so, so important, and things that women in the past couldn't afford because they couldn't have the freedom to do it. But now, as women, we really should um take care of ourselves and make sure that we also have something going on for ourselves.
Yeah, and I then actually just on that note then, for any mothers or wives, that are listening to this episode, if they do feel that that's kind of, I mean, obviously being a mother and a wife is an amazing thing, but if they feel
Right.
that is everything and they again might be losing who they really are and they want to explore other opportunities or other things, or what would you say to them?
I would say, okay, two things. One, definitely find a hobby that you are really interested in. And it might take some time because I have talked to a lot of moms about this and they're like, but I don't have anything. I love hanging out with my children all the time. And I love that. Like being a mom is extremely important. It's the most important job in the world. Um, at the same time, of course, you have, you know, 10-15 minutes to read if you love reading. Of course you have, um just don't forget the interests and the hobbies that you can carry forward, be it creativity, be it volunteering, be it reading the news, or like whatever it is that you're passionate about. Don't forget to follow your passion as well and spend even just a little bit of time per day taking care of yourself outside of being a mother and wife. And the second one is don't forget to masturbate because for real, orgasms are great for you. Like, it's scientifically true that orgasms will improve your mood, boost your immune system, overall just makes you like a better person that day. um it also, good sex or good masturbation, good orgasms will also, it's anti-aging, will like add years to your life. So um don't neglect your own sexual health because it is important. It is valuable and it adds to every other aspect of your life. When your sex life is good, you have more capacity to make sure that other aspects of your life is good.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense because we're, that's our biology. That's we are human beings at the end of the day, and that
It's why
is,
we're here.
yeah, it is. It's in our biology. So,
Yeah.
and then in this theme, then I also want to talk about, post divorce or post breakup, post end of any relationship. And obviously you're not going to be in a very good place. I mean, some
Mhm.
people are somehow, but most people aren't. What would you then again say to somebody that they want to navigate getting back into the dating world? I mean, obviously, dating is just changes like literally every day these days. Like,
Mhm.
really does. But what would you say to somebody that's in that place again where they're not in the best of places? Maybe they're scared, maybe they haven't got the confidence or self esteem, whatever it might be, but they want to start getting out there again. What would you say?
Okay, I would say three steps. One, try a daily practice of um self affirmations or positive affirmations meditations those are extremely helpful. And for those of you that are like, oh, meditation is so woo woo, no, it's not. There's a lot of scientific results or findings to show that it's extremely helpful in building your self esteem, and also calming your nervous system and overall just like improve your life. So, number one, I would say if you're struggling a little bit about confidence and your self esteem and going back to into the dating field again, I would do this practice daily is positive affirmations like about yourself. Um, and then number two, I know that some people are anti online dating apps. But dating apps are, I think, a great way to dip your toes back into dating again and just like chatting with other people,
Mhm.
right? Because when you post divorce or post long term relationship breakups, you haven't spent like time being single and like talking to strangers, right? Ultimately, what dating is talking to a bunch of strangers and see which stranger is worth your time. So, um, I would say if you're nervous about just going out there and like meeting people in real life or meeting people at a pub or at a gym or whatever, dating apps are great. Um, when you go on dating apps, make sure you set yourself like a certain amount of time of being on it so that you're not like too addicted to it and that you don't get burnout from it. Cause that's what we hear a lot is people getting burnout from being on dating apps. Interestingly, one of my students said she was on a dating app for 5 hours.
Just sitting
Just,
there.
yeah,
How?
5 hours. You can be on it for 5 hours. Not only swiping, but also chatting to like multiple people. And it's exhausting. And she got exhausted, and then she got very pessimistic about dating. She's like, "Oh, there's nobody for me." Well, it's gonna feel like that sometimes if you're spending 5 hours a day on it, right? So I would say make it um like a part-time thing where you go on apps and chat with people and dip your toes in and rather than like jumping into the ocean, right? Try that first. And then number three, I would say don't think that other people also don't have the baggage because they all do. And I think changing this perspective really helps me. It's like when after I got divorced, I'm like, oh my God, like now I have to like, tell people I'm divorced or even just like general people, not about dating, like just other people, right? I was so ashamed before I worked on myself and worked on accepting that as a part of who I am. It's like, it's embarrassing, right? But just know that when you're in a dating field, especially when you're like in your 30s, late 20s, 30s, 40s, like everyone has a baggage and that's okay. It's it's all about, peeling the onions and learning about each other and, being authentic and honest about our experiences and build the new relationship from there.
That's a really interesting point because it is everyone, pretty much everyone's gonna have baggage, and it doesn't matter how big or small yours is. Especially as you do get older in life, the more people you meet, the more
Everyone.
baggage is gonna be, and yeah,
Yeah, and it's helpful to think that way. Like, don't be ashamed of your own baggage. Like, everyone has a baggage, darling. You're fine.
I love that everyone has baggage, darling. Because yeah, there's no point being ashamed because that's who you are, and that's the person that you've become, and
Hmm.
that's only gonna lead you on to hopefully even more amazing things.
Yes.
And then obviously, so Celebs Go Dating.
Hmm.
How has that been for you?
It's been amazing. I love my co-hosts, the other Asians. I love Anna, love Paul and Tom. It's been just a- an amazing journey of dipping my toes into TV because last season, series 12 was my first time on a TV show. I've done a lot of like news segments, like morning show segments about like sex tips or intimacy tips, but I've never done like a TV series. So last year was my first series, and then this is my second series this year. Um, what I find really interesting is that the reality part of the reality television is so real. When we sit down in those consultation rooms and we have the celebs in the couch and them like talking about their past and crying and really healing from those hurtful past, like that's real.
Mm.
Those sessions are like really long. Those sessions are 60 to 90 minutes sometimes, even though they show like 5 minutes on the show. Um, so that surprised me because coming in, I kind of thought all reality TV was fake. Like, these stars, like they come in and they cry immediately and it's over, right? Like, okay, cut, bye. Right. I thought they were gonna be like, okay, action. They cry. And then like cut and then they leave, right? But it's not like that at all. It's very much like a therapy session outside of any kind of television setting. And that is refreshing to me that like people do come in and do get the help and the guidance, and it's like free therapy
Mm. And I think actually,
and free dating, right? Because they get set up and like just have to show up and see if it's fun or not.
I mean, we would all love that, wouldn't we? But
Yeah.
I think in a way as well, with that show in mind, it's and that's like with anyone that's going through anything in life. When you see whether it's your celebrity role model or they're not your role model or their idol, but a celebrity, let's say, when you see that they are a human being that's also going through a maybe what you're going through or maybe something very different to you, I think it makes you it can make some people feel less alone because it almost can make people understand that every single human being on this planet, no matter if you are the king or queen of a country or you're not, everyone through every stage and every job and everything they do in life, everyone goes through something, whatever that might be, and it helps people relate, and it makes people feel less alone because it helps people understand that, okay, wow, they're going through something too. Okay, well, and that can be like, so how did they get through that, or what tips did they know, or oh, maybe they'll follow their social media account and see how they just get through their every day.
Yeah, exactly. I really love the format of this show because I just don't see any other shows that does that.
Mm.
Um where they sit down and have a therapy session and then they get to go out and like employ or execute or use the tools that they were just given. Um yeah, cuz like other shows it's like you all live in the same house and then you try to date and there isn't, a professional to help them. Like in this show, you have three professionals that do this job outside of this TV show every day to come in and help you, and then you get to use those tools on the dates that you get set up with. Like I really love the format of this show, and it's in terms of relatability. Recently we had well last night episode was Jamelia sharing about her abusive relationships in the past and trigger warning, domestic violence and something like that where her bravery with sharing a story so personal and intimate and so hard. um we have seen tons of feedback of like thank you so much for talking about this and for speaking up. I was also in that situation, or someone's like um this is inspiring me to change my life, or it's so incredible when we have those moments.
And that's what's important about, I think that's the thing as well when we're in relationships, whether they're, especially if we're in an unhappy relationship, we sometimes don't want to speak out and
Mhm.
we don't want to tell our friends and family. I think in a way, maybe it's you think it's a failure. You don't want to be a failure or you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to tell people these things. So you go along with the motions and you don't speak out. Whereas I think that's just the thing. It's so important to speak out, whether you do speak to one person, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a stranger, um, whether it's your friend or your family, whatever you're going through. And if it's not a relationship and if it's after a relationship, or whether you're single and you're not in a good place about being single, it's so okay to speak because I think, like you said, sharing these stories and you never know who you're going to meet. You know the standard thing, and the standard thing where the girls' bathroom at a nightclub. Let's say it's
Yeah.
always known where girls share everything with each other.
Yeah.
Like you learn all about the girl next to you who you've just
Yeah.
met. You know all about her life, but we've all been there. Like I've done it. I've had people do it. But my point, is sometimes you just do it, and sometimes you can get that bit of information or that little piece of advice back to you, which can change everything just because you spoke out. And I'm not saying it's the same. You don't have to speak to every stranger you meet. But my point is if that you need that piece of advice, speaking out is so important. And you never know someone else's story because they might have been through the same thing.
100%. And even the act of speaking out, like that's healing.
Mm.
That's powerful.
Mm. No, I agree with you. I agree with you because it's a healing and it's a self-love journey. And I know a lot of people when they hear the term self-love are all like, "Oh, self-love." Like they
Yeah.
almost mimic it. No, people can't even
Yeah.
say it correctly.
But it's so true. Like you gotta freaking love yourself, man. Like that's so important. I don't know why people think it's ridiculous to like talk about self-love when it's literally the most important thing in life. You can't love other people when you don't love yourself.
And that's the point. If you don't love yourself, like no one else is really 100% truly going to love you for who
Mm,
you are. So that's how I see it,
mhm,
at least.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and then obviously just in just in everything that's happened, then obviously you then, you're in you're married now. How was navigating that after the divorce and then obviously meeting somebody else? How was that navigation?
I think it's mainly about me staying true to my like I'll say everything I feel from now on philosophy. And um I think navigating it just head on and not shy away from when I struggle about it. Like I if even with my now husband, like even if I struggle with you know my divorce or thinking about my ex-husband in certain ways, like I'm able to speak up and talk about the issue, and whatever I go through, I'm able to speak up and talk about the issue. I think the main lesson for me is confidence and communication solve most problems in life. And whatever it is, if it's relationship, love, family, siblings, friendships, work, um, whatever it is, it takes confidence and good communication.
Yeah, it does. It's literally those two things,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's like just that. Like confidence and good communication, you can jump through a lot of hoops and solve a lot of problems and get what you want.
But then how can if someone is in that deep dark place, especially after the end of a relationship or anything, losing a job, being fired,
Yeah.
anything that makes you have no
Mhm.
self-confidence, what would you say then to someone, not the whole journey, but what would you say to help them get back onto that self-confidence journey? Because I reckon everyone goes through something like that.
Yeah. I think everyone at some point has experienced self-doubt.
Mm.
Self-doubt is this huge black hole that starts small in your head, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger unless our confidence like shines so bright and like make that hole goes away. And for me, confidence comes from not like just one big thing, but achieving small little things daily, the small little goals that I set for myself. So if I say I'm going to do, a quick meditation every day for a month, I do it. If I say I'm going to go for this thing, I consistently try to go and do it. If I say I'm going to start doing self affirmations every morning in the mirror, I go through with it and complete it. So there's a lot of research in positive psychology that show consistently achieving your small goal, small task, build strong foundation for self-esteem and self-confidence. So this is not just my opinion, it is a scientific fact that this practice works. So if you are in that, dark place after a difficult time, um, the best thing to pick yourself back up is actually grab a journal and write down what small things you want to achieve in the next, like, let's say, week, and then the next month. And then when you feel like it in this next year, right? But start with it's just like, what do you want to achieve this week?
Mm.
Maybe it's, eating, maybe it's drinking 8 cups of water a day. Maybe it's meditating 5 minutes a day. Whatever it is, once you achieved it, make sure you do a check, a
Mhm.
physical check box, like check mark. That gives you, it's funny, but that gives you self esteem and that gives you self confidence. So try that and see if it works for you.
But it's the small things. We think that to have self-confidence or a big achievement in life has to come from big things, but it can literally be the case of you didn't want to train that day and you wanted to stay in bed, but you know what, even though
You went to the gym.
every fiber in your body didn't want to train that day, you pulled yourself out of the bed and you got to the gym, and even if you only trained for 10 minutes, you did it.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a tick box. That's
Yeah.
and again, it's one of those things. It's like one of those. It's like whenever I message like my best mate, for instance, and it's like, oh, I want to go swimming today, but I want to stay in bed. I can't be bothered. She'll be
Right.
like, she literally will be like, you'll feel better if you go, and I'm like, yeah, I
Yes.
know.
Exactly. And it's a huge self esteem and self confidence boost because now you've done something good for yourself.
Mhm.
Another thing that I learned from reading a lot of like self development research findings is doing something for other people. Like that really helped boost your self esteem. It's so funny because doing something for other people sounds altruistic, right? Like it's not about you, it's about other people. But as a side effect, it boosts your self esteem once you have completed a task for other people. So maybe if you're obsessing over like a certain failure or about yourself or about your depression, like maybe focus on doing something for one specific person. um Maybe your best friend, like maybe make dinner for them, invite them over, make dinner for them. Maybe like doing something for other people allows you to take the perspective, allows you to be giving, and that actually increases your self-esteem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's finding the small things that are also that fit who you are. That make and that's the thing. You could ask a friend and they could tell you something that works for them, but it doesn't work
Yeah.
for you, and that's okay
Yeah.
because we're all on our own unique journeys and we're all very different people.
Exactly. If my friend's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see, I'm gonna take you to go see NASCAR because it improves," I'll be like, "That's a no for me." but but yeah, whatever suits you. Like it's important to know that it's a journey and it's not just one thing you do and now your confidence is 10 out of 10. Like sometimes shit will happen and then your confidence is now back at like 2 out of 10.
Hmm.
If I get something, if I really want something and let's say I get a rejection about it, like my confidence that day is going to not feel so great. Right. But then I didn't go back to my practices and consistently achieve the small goals that I set that week, do something for my husband, do something for my friends. Then it's back up.
Hmm.
So just know it's a journey. It's not just a one time deal.
And I guess, like we said at the beginning, if you are rejected for whatever life, it's kind of not happening to you; it's happening for you. And
For
even in that
you. I
sense of
love that.
But even in that sense of rejection and feeling completely, with so much self-doubt and no confidence at all, it's really hard to, like we said, feel that it's happening for you. But like you said, once you can work through that moment, whether it lasts for an hour, a day, a week, however long it might last, once you work through it and you start to build up again, you kind of look back and you realize actually that happened because it got me to where I am now. And it's almost like every time it's like that famous quote, get knocked down 7 times, get back up 8. I'm a believer of, you know, it's hard and it's annoying and nobody wants to get knocked down constantly or, whatever it is in life, but every knockdown you go through, you get a choice. You get a
Mhm.
choice to stay in that knockdown, in that low zone, or you get the choice to rebuild yourself again. And it's
Mhm.
like a constant evolution of, if you are on a healing journey and you do want to do everything to, better yourself and for who you are, it is a constant, you constantly doing it. I don't think you ever stop. I think you constantly do it through your life.
That's true. Life's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then just before we do wrap up, then I want to just ask you, so what would you say to anyone, men and women, anybody that is going through a divorce, and what would you say to them that they think that it's never going to end? They see no light at the end of the tunnel. They think they'll maybe never meet anyone again. They're in that stage where it's happening, they're going through it, but they never think it's ever going to get better.
I would say what I now know for myself and for, thousands of people that I have helped and read through their stories online is that divorce is an opportunity to live the life you've always wanted. You just don't know it yet. And if you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, 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 right. Like, I get it. I totally get it because I would have said that during that time too. But just know that you will know one day that divorce is truly, truly, in the most authentic and honest sense, an opportunity for you to live the life you've always wanted. And it will get better, 100% will. Um, if you're thinking about things that will help you feel better in those moments of the when you feel down, um research did find that social support and through like friendships and families is the most important thing through this journey. So what actually would be helpful rather than isolating yourself is actually spending time with your good friends. And if you're close to your family, then your family members. But if you're not close to your family, then you're good friends.
Mhm.
It can slowly help you gain momentum in life again and in the confidence in yourself again and in dating again. But don't isolate yourself. Find your people and spend time with them.
I love that because I think it surrounds not just breakups and divorce and relationships. I think what you just said surrounds every aspect of life when you do go through an adversity. Because again, you won't realize it at the time, but when you're going through it, it's quite literally a ticket to a
Mhm.
brand new life, a brand new adventure. I know, I can rest assured you do not see it at the
Yeah.
time, but it is a ticket to a brand new chapter, book, life, adventure, wherever you want to take it. It's a, like you said, it's a brand new opportunity. I agree.
Yeah. And I mean look at your life now, right? After your accident, like is it completely different from the way you view yourself before?
Yeah, it's interesting that question because not a lot of people ask me. But yeah, my entire life is completely different. I am completely different. My entire life changed course the day I had my accident. Like, but literally everything. I don't think I'd be doing anything I was doing today if I didn't have my accident, because it took me to rock bottom and God, like 500 feet below. And I single handedly burned every aspect of my life to the ground. And I was left with, nothing. It was like, where do I go from here? Well, the only way literally was up. And it was, I now have the opportunity. There's the opportunity. I now have the ticket to where I can, in my own control, start to create the life of my dreams. And believe me, I didn't even know what that was when it happened. And one thing unfolded into the next thing, which unfolded, and that's like we were saying with the plan. Have a plan, yeah, have a plan of where you might want things to go, but be so open to the unknown. The unknown is like literally the scariest place in the world.
Mhm.
But
It is.
be okay being in the unknown, and that's still something I'm learning and I'm still navigating through. But be okay in the unknown, because the unknown takes you to places that you never even dreamt about.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, the last thing I'm going to say is like the unknown for me, because I've always been in academia. The unknown for me was actually this job that in Europe for Celebs Go Dating. Like I was like, I don't know about this. Like, of course I thought it was an exciting opportunity at first, but I'm like, I don't know TV. Like I don't know what I'll have to do. I don't know how it's gonna turn out. But jumping into it and now seeing all of the work like come into fruition, it's extremely rewarding.
Mhm. When you're faced with some of the scariest choices in life, and that's when the comfort zone kicks in, That's usually when you're meant to do it. If you're terrified of doing whatever it might be, that's usually, in my opinion, the sign that you kind of need to do
Love that.
it. Thank you. Well, is there anything else that you want to discuss today?
Um, I would say I'd want to leave with this philosophy that I have taken on for myself for the last like 5 years. And I really think I live my life through this philosophy is pleasure is medicine. And don't forget to have pleasure in life. Like we were not meant to struggle every little thing every single day. Like find pleasure in small things. Like maybe you're eating a piece of chocolate, slow down, like bite in and feel it in your mouth and find pleasure in it. Maybe you're drinking your first cup of water a day, like feel the pleasure of the water going down and hydrating yourself. Maybe you're stretching or going for a workout. Feel like, feel the pleasure in like everything that you do, because like pleasure is medicine, and the more you're able to embrace these things in life, you'll also feel more grateful because there are good things that happening to you. Maybe it's not, oh, I didn't get a job promotion, but you know what? I drank 8 glasses of water today. And there are good things that are happening every single day. You just have to find and appreciate them.
Yeah, look around yourself because
Yeah.
it's
And
usually that's
experience
what
the
we're meant.
pleasure. Every little small thing is a pleasure.
Exactly. It's always hidden in the small moments. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you for having me.
It's not about life happening to us, it's about life happening for us. Whether you're in a happy relationship or not, happy being single or not, going through a heartbreak or you're not, you have to find confidence in who you are and who you want to be to help you navigate through this world. Whether you begin a new book this evening, start meditating tomorrow morning, go to that art class, that gym class, or even take yourself out on a date for coffee. Finding you in all the craziness in not only the world, but the dating world can lead you to new adventures, experiences, and even people. You can be anybody you want to be with no limitations. So never hide yourself from anybody, especially not yourself. So until next time, remember, you have the power inside you. We all do. You have the power to get back up.